Now we continue to discuss about the third chapter. The third chapter concerns about the dependent arising. And actually, the dependent arising should call codependent and co-arising because the cause and the conditions are multiple. So we have to put co-dependent. And of course, the cause and the conditions are multiple. The effect should be multiple. So we also put CO before arising, co-dependent and co-arising. However, we want to put it simply, we just mention dependent arising. The scope of dependent arising. The scope means the field or the category, how much that the dependent arising can be applied to. One question often raised in modern scholarship on Buddhism relates to dependent arisings range of application. Of course, modern scholarship question on Buddhism in many perspectives. And one of the questions is the scope of the dependent arising. Which field or which area that we can apply the principle of dependent arising? Does it apply to the whole of animate and inanimate existence or to something less? We ask, does the principle of dependent arising apply to the whole? The whole means the whole world of animate existence and inanimate existence. Animate existence refers to the different beings. Usually we call the different beings or the sentient beings. And inanimate existence means the non-sentient beings, which has no life. Any animate existence has life. For example, the animal or the plants. And the inanimate existence has no life. For example, the stone, the soil, the lake, water, the fire, the anything else. Animate and inanimate existence compose the whole world. Does the principle dependent arising apply to something less? Of course, we understand that in Mahayana Buddhism, the principle of dependent arising apply to the whole world, apply to all the conditioned phenomena. However, it is different in the Theravadan Buddhism or even in the Northern Sarvastin Buddhism, or we may say in the Agama Sutta or the Nikaya Sutta. The scope of application is narrow, not so wide as the Mahayana Buddhism. Now we applying the principle to the something which is applicable in the Theravadan Buddhism. From the Buddhist perspective, the answer to that question will depend on what Buddhism means by word loka. and the all sabba. From the Buddhist perspective, if we want to answer the question how the principle can be applied to, then the question will depend on what Buddhism means by world. World in Pali is called loka or lakika, lakika, Laukika. Loka and lakika means the word in Pali. Loka means something which can decay, which can arise and reside for a certain time, and then decay, and then extinguish. And the all sabba, why the author mentioned the all, the word, the all sabba dukkha, because the modern scholar question about whether the principle can be applied to the whole of animate and inanimate existence. This phrase means the whole world. Therefore, we have to clarify what is the definition of loka and sabba in early Buddhism. For this purpose, we would like to cite here two quotations from the Pali discourses. It is very similar to the Northern Agama Sutta. The word, they call it. Venerable Sir, in what sense is there a word? In what sense is there a concept of the world? The world, that is the object we perceive. And the concept of the world is what we recognize or how we experience the world. This is the question put to the Buddha by the bhikkhu. To this question raised by Samadhi, the Buddha replies, wherever Samadhi, there is the I, the visible forms, the visual consciousness, and the things perceptible with the visual consciousness. There lies the world, there lies the concept of the world. Wherever there is the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, there lies the world, there lies the concept of the world. Samadhi. Samadhi is a disciple of the Buddha. He attained arahantship during his life. The above question is raised by Samadhi. Then the Buddha replies in this way. Wherever, that means any place where we can find the eye, the visual organ, the visible forms. This is the object that we see or our eye apply, our eye cling to. The visual consciousness. The visual consciousness is the result of the eye contacting the visible forms. Then the Buddha means that the word means the eye, the visible forms, and the visual consciousness. The things perceivable with the visual consciousness means the concept of the world. Therefore, the Buddha say, there lies the world. The world refers to the visible forms, the eye under the visual consciousness, there lies the concept of the world. The concept of the world here refers to the things perceivable with the visual consciousness. And in the same way, we have the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, and their objects and their respective consciousness. There lies the world. There lies the concept of the world. The Buddha's reply shows that there means there must have three kinds of phenomena present for the world to be realized, namely the six sense faculties, the corresponding six sense objects, and the six respective sense consciousnesses. Here, very clearly, that the Buddha refers the world to the world within our experience. If it is beyond our experience, it is not the subject of the Buddha Dharma in early Buddhism. Of course, you know that in Mahayana Buddhism, we discuss about not only the experiential world, and also the world beyond our recognition. In early Buddhism, the world is limited to the three kinds of phenomena. That is the six sense faculties. The six sense faculties means the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. The corresponding six sense objects, those objects are sensed by our six sense organs. And then we have the respective sense consciousnesses. That means when our eyes contacts the visible forms, we can arise only the visual consciousness. We cannot arise the mental consciousness or the hearing consciousness in early Buddhism. However, in Mahayana Buddhism, it is different, especially in the Surangama Sutra. We see that if we are enlightened, if we have the perfect enlightenment, then we can use our eye to hear, to think, and so on. Because the Surangama Sutra is a sutra of Buddha nature. It is different. The theory is different between the Surangama Sutra and the other Mahayana Sutra, not to mention the early Buddhism. So here, the word means the word of our experience. Since the entirety of our conscious experience depends on the 12 sense bases, the six sense faculties, and the six sense objects. These 12 sense bases are also defined as the basic data of what constitutes the all or the totality but the above mentioned condition refers to the world. There are 18 items. We call them the six sense faculties, the corresponding six sense objects, and the six respective sense consciousness. We give them a name. We call it the 18 Dhatus, the 18 Dhatus, Dhatu, Dhatu. We call them 18 Dhatus. Dhatus means 18 boundaries or 18 spheres. And Dhatu can also means the cause, the nature, the quality in Mahayana Buddhism. For example, in Mahayana Buddhism, we call Buddha nature as Buddha Dhatu. Buddha Dhatu is translated as Buddha nature in Mahayana Buddhism. The nature is the quality, is the cause of the whole world. And Sabba means totality or all. The totality of all in early Buddhism refers to the 12 sense bases. 12 sense bases means from those 12 sense bases, we can create, we can produce our world because from the contact between 6 sense faculties and 6 sense objects, the 6 consciousnesses arises. Therefore, they are the basic data of our experience, the all or the totality. And we called the 12 sense bases in Pali or in Sanskrit as Ayatana, Ayatana, Ayatana. The 12 Ayatanas means the 12 sense bases or the 12 basic data. The Buddha said, and what bhikkhus is what is the all, the eye and the forms, the ear and the sounds, the nose and the odors, the tongue and the taste, the body and the tactile objects, the mind and the mental phenomena. This is called the all. And there is no other word besides this word. If anyone, bhikkhus, should speak thus, having rejected this word, I shall make known another word. That would be a mere empty words of his part. If he were questioned, he would not be able to reply further. He would meet with vexation. For what reason? Because what would not be that would not be within his domain. Of course, this is quoted from the Samyutta Sutta. Samyutta Sutta is one of the 5 Nikayas. The Buddha say, what is all? Following the 12 Ayantana. Ayantana means the sense basis. The sense basis called Ayantana because from this basis we arise the sense, our visual consciousness and hearing consciousness and the mental consciousness and all. So the Buddha answered, the old refers to the 12 ayatanas or the 12 sense bases, nothing else. This is the definition in the early Buddhism or in the Samyutta Sutta. Of course, it is not the definition in Mahayana Buddhism. If anyone should speak thus, having rejected this all, if anyone say, no, I don't agree with the Buddha, there are something else beyond the 12 sense basis, I shall make known in another world. That would be a mere empty boast on his part. That is only an empty boast. An empty boast, that means it is not true. He only brags about himself that he knows much more than the Buddha. If he were questioned, he would not be able to reply because he could not understand the world beyond our 12 sense basis. Thus, the Buddha does not deny the objective reality of the world. What he denies is that which transcends the bounds of possible experience. In the five Nikayas or in the early Buddhism, the Buddha does not deny the objective reality of the world. It means the Buddha does not deny that the world exists. That means the 12 sense bases exist. They really exist. However, they are impermanent. They are conditioned. What he denies is that which transcends the bounds of possible experience. That means the Buddha focuses the liberation. He teaches us the five noble truths. So his main attention is about the liberation of our suffering. So he doesn't want to talk anything about the metaphysical world. He only talk about our experience, how we can liberate from our suffering. It is the main purpose of the Buddha's teaching in early Buddhism. And you have to be reminded again and again. In Mahayana Buddhism, the teachings are different from the early Buddhism. In other words, for early Buddhism, world means individual existence. Individual existence, of course, refers to the six sense organs, the six objects, and the six consciousnesses. We call them the 18 dhātus. Individual existence means individual experience. If we want to exist, we should rely on our six sense organs, and we should rely on the external world, and we should have the cognition or the consciousness to understand ourselves and to understand the external world. So in early Buddhism, the world means individual existence. It means the individual experience. Therefore, my world is different from yours and different from anyone else because we have different 18 dhātus in early Buddhism. This is the meaning of world. It is, in fact, only through the activity of our physical and the mental sense faculties that a world can be experienced and known at all. The physical sense faculties refer to our eye, ear, nose, tongue, and the body. And mental faculties means the mind, or in Pali is called citta, the citta. What is seen, heard, smelled, tasted, and touched by the physical sense faculties and our various mental functions, both consciousness and unconsciousness. This is the world in which we live. And here we know that our physical sense faculties can see, can hear, can smell, can taste, and can touch. And our mental faculty refers to our conscious and unconscious. Here clearly that in early Buddhism, there is the concept of consciousness and unconsciousness. Unconsciousness is sometimes called mano. Unconsciousness refers to mano. Therefore, we understand that in Theravadan teaching, they have the concept of mano, but they don't have the concept of araya consciousness. They have the concept of the sixth consciousness, and the mental consciousness consists of consciousness and unconsciousness, and we can call the unconsciousness as the mano or the manas. This is the world in which we live. It is precisely this world, the world as given in experience, comprehension, gross knowledge, and the knowing in the widest sense that Buddhism analyzes into several basic factors, such as the five aggregates, skandhas, the 12 sense bases, ayatanas, and the 18 elements of cognition. The 18 elements of cognition are the 18 dhatus. So in early Buddhism, early Buddhism analyzes the knowledge. Knowledge means the experience of individuals. And the knowing means the objects we experience. Early Buddhism analyzes them into several basic factors. Sometimes we call them five aggregates. Five aggregates are most mentioned, most discussed in Agama Sutras and the Nikaya Sutras. And the 12 sense bases, the 12 sense bases refer to our six sense organs, the six sensual objects. They are called ayatana, which can produce the six consciousness. The 18 elements of cognition. Elements here means dhatu in Pali or in Sanskrit. It is precisely this word that Buddhism seeks to explain on the basis of its doctrine of dependent arising. In Theravadan Buddhism, we can say in this way that the doctrine or the theory or the principle of dependent arising can be applied to the whole world. But the word here means only the 18 dhatus, not the world beyond the 18 consciousness, the 18 elements of cognition. It is different from Mahayana Buddhism. The principle of dependent arising can be applied to the whole world in the definition of the Theravada Buddhism, but they don't accept the world beyond the 18 dhatus, or the 5 khandhas, or the 12 ayatanas. A dependent arising as the middle doctrine. The middle doctrine is not only available in Mahayana Buddhism, but it has been available from the very beginning of the Buddha's teaching. From the very early teachings of the Buddha mentioned about middle doctrine. We call them the Madhyamaka. Madhyama means the middle. Makka means the doctrine, or means the teaching. In this section, the author mentioned seven relative ideals, 7 relative extreme ideals that the Buddha or the early Buddhism tries to transcend over them, not to fall into these 7 pairs of extremes. Dependent arising, as already explained, is presented as the middle doctrine because it steers clear of the mutual conflict between spiritual eternalism and materialist annihilationism. These 2 theoretical views, as noted above, are also called the view of being and the view of non-being, or the view of existence and the view of non-existence, respectively. In the Eightfold Noble Path, the first Noble Path is called right view. And the right view is the opposite of the wrong views. Therefore, the 7 pairs of relative ideas or concepts mentioned in this section can be called the wrong views. They are wrong. They are not the right views. The first pair of extremes is spiritual eternalism, versus materialist annihilationism. Spiritual eternalism means some religions or some theories mention that our spirit or our consciousness is everlasting. Is everlasting. Our spirit or our mind transcend our body. Our body will die someday, but our mind or our spirit, or we may call it Atta or Atma, or our soul, will last forever. This is an idea of Atta, or the idea of ego or self. Materialist annihilationism refers to our body. Our body will die sometimes, And some scholars or some religions claim that after death, nothing exists. This is the other extreme of the spiritual eternalism. And of course, the materialist annihilationism is also a concept of soul, a concept of atta. They have the concept of ego. They cling to an ego, a self or a soul. These two theoretical views, we call them theoretical views. It means they are only the views from the point of theory, not from experience. The Buddha experienced through meditation, through samatha, the vipassana. So the Buddha experienced that both the spiritual eternalism and the materialist annihilationism are wrong, because Buddha discovered that they are ever-changing. There is no ego, there is no self, there is no soul at all. There is no everlasting existence within our five aggregates. Therefore, we call them theoretical views. They are not the findings of meditation. If we meditate according to the Buddha's techniques, then we can find that nothing is eternal, and that nothing will decay forever. Something will arise and then changes and then distinguishes. It is a continuum of changing. There is no everlasting ego. However, other founders of religions or other scholars fall into the theoretical views. They are not the experiential result or findings of practice. These two theoretical views can also be called the view of being. The view of being means spiritual eternalism. The view of non-being refers to materialist annihilationism, or the view of existence, and the view of non-existent, respectively. Okay, this is the first pair of two extremes, eternalism and the nihilism. Then we come to the second pair of extremes. Another two mutually exclusive views all exist. Sabam Adi, and all does not exist. Sabam Nadi. The first view represents an extreme form of realism, which asserts that everything exists absolutely, while the second possesses an extreme form of nihilism, which asserts that absolutely nothing exists. According to dependent aversion, it is not a question of existing or non-existing, but dependent aversion. The second pair of extremes is all exists and all does not exist. Sapa means all. Ati means exist. And all does not exist. Sapam nati. Nati means does not exist. And here we can refer to the Chinese Buddhism, the Abhidhamma Kosa, or the theory of the Sarvastivadin. The Sarvastivadin theory is different from the Theravadan Buddhism. In the Abhidhamma Kosa, or the theory of the Sarvastivadin, the theory is there is a basic element of all phenomena. It means that they claim all exists. The theory is Sapam Ati. And in Theravadan Buddhism, it is different. Therefore, Theravadan Buddhism is more advanced as we understand. And it is closer to Mahayana Buddhism. In Theravadan Buddhism, or in Southern Buddhism, we know that there is a book called Abhidhamma Kathavatu. Abhidhamma means the commentary. Katha, K-A-T-H-A. Katha. Katha means the actions or the anything or the practice of the Buddhist. Katha. Vatu. V-A-T-T-H-U. Katha Vatu. The title is Abhidhamma Katha Vatu. The author is Moggalliputta. Moggalliputta. Moggalliputta Tissa. Moggalliputta. M-O-G-G-L-I-P-U-T-T-A. Moggalliputta in Pali. In Sanskrit, he's called Moggallien Putra. In Pali, it's called Moggalliputta Tissa. T-I-S-S-A. He wrote the book of the Abhidhamma Kathavatu in the year of 255 before Common Era. In his book, he mentioned the different theories from other schools of early Buddhism. In total, there are 226 themes or topics, 226 topics that Moggalliputta Tissa tried to deny or try to criticize the wrong view. And among these 226 themes, the number 6, the 6th theme is about the problem of all exists and all does not exist. And he criticized that the Sarvastivadin theory is wrong. He said, according to the theory of dependent arising, we cannot say that all exists, and also we cannot say all does not exist. Uh, because according to the theory of dependent arising, if there is cause and condition, there will be effect. If there is no cause and conditions, there will be no effect. So we cannot say all exists and all does not exist. Magariputtadisa wrote this book, very important. But the Chinese Buddhists or the Tibetan Buddhists uh, nearly don't know this book. But this book is very important. It is the denial of many wrong views. Now we discuss about the second pair of extremes. Exclusive views, mutually exclusive views means one view excludes the another, rejects the another. They are extreme views. One extreme is sabam adi, and the another extreme is sabam nadi. Sabam nadi means realism, which asserts that everything exists absolutely. Exists absolutely means they will exist forever. Of course, they arise and they will change and they will extinguish. But even extinguished, they still exist in a hidden form. They are not existent in obvious form, but they exist in hidden form. They are not all obvious, but they still exist. It is the meaning of everything exists absolutely. Of course, they accept the idea of changing, but the Savathivardians claim that the 18 dhatus exist forever. And as we know, we have the so-called earth element, fire element, water element, wind element, and the air element, and the mental element. They exist forever in two kinds of form. One is the obvious form, and the other one exists is hidden form. Sapam Adi. And the second view, second extreme view, Sapam Nadi means nihilism, that when something extinguishes, they will never arise again. They are two extremes. Nihilism means absolutely nothing exists. According to dependent arising, it is a question of existing. It is not a question of existing or not existing, but the main point is dependent arising. This is the second pair of extremes or wrong views. Then we come to the third pair of extreme views or wrong views. Then follows another pair of views, or a unity, sabam ikatan. Ikatan means one, ikat, eka, ikat, ikatan. Ikatan means a unity, all are one. And the other extreme is all are plurality, sabam putantam. Putu means plural. Pututtam, plurality. The fourth, Sabam Ikadam, is to be understood as a monistic view that everything is reducible to a common ground, some sort of self-substance, whereas the second view, Sabam Putantam, encompasses the opposite radically pluralistic view that the whole of existence is resolvable into a combination of discrete entities with no interconnection and interdependence. Okay, we have the third pair of extreme, Sabam Ikadam. Sabam Ikadam can be referred to the concept of a creator God or a basic origin. For example, we have the so-called materialism, or we have the so-called spiritualism. They refer to that everything comes from the same origin. And Sabam Pudatam. Sabam Pudatam is the extreme of pluralistic, that everything is composed by many discrete entities. Discrete entities means independent entities. They are different. And those discrete entities have no interconnection and no interdependence. They are different from each other. The third extreme of Sabam Ikadam and Sabam Pututtam. Then the author try to explain more clearly. It is true that Buddhism analysis individual existence into a number of factors, such as the five aggregates, five khandhas, and the 12 sense bases, the 12 ayantanas, and the 18 elements of cognition, the 18 dhatus. Of course, in Agama Sutras or the five Nikayas, the Buddha always analyzed that we, the human beings, into five aggregates or 12 sense bases and the 18 elements of cognition. However, the factors that obtain through analysis are not discrete, are not independently existing entities, as we call them. They are anatta, or they are anadama. From Agama Sutras, we can find that the Buddha always tried to remind the bhikkhus that there is no self, there is no mind, there is nothing belongs to me, and there is no soul within our five aggregates. The aggregates are not existent in the domain of the soul. In short, the Buddha always reminds us that anadama, or non-ego or non-self is very important for us to attain Nibbana. So although we have the five khandhas, 12 ayantanas, under the 18 dhatus, however, they are not independently existent entities because they are changing forever, and they are dependent arising. They arise in dependence of many other factors. So they have no origin and that they have no ending. The factors into which a thing is analysis are synthesized according to the principle of arising. The factors into which a thing is analysis. A thing here refers to the five khandhas, 12 ayantanas, and the 18 dhatus. They are analysis. However, they are also synthesized. They are also synthesized. Synthesized means they are put together according to the principle of dependent arising. And following two sentences are very important. Analysis, when not supplemented by synthesis, leads to pluralism. Synthesis, when not supplemented by analysis, leads to monism. Please bear these two sentences in mind. It is very important. When we learn Buddha Dhamma or practice Buddha Dhamma, we should apply the two techniques of analysis and synthesis at the same time. If we only use the method of analysis, then we go to one extreme. And if we only apply the technique of synthesis, then we go to the other extreme. Then our practice will be useless. So we have to put these two methods of investigation together at the same time. Analysis, when not supplemented, means when not aided. When we don't mention synthesis, if there's only analysis and there's no synthesis, then we will fall into the pitfall of pluralism, because we can analyze something into many factors, but we don't synthesize them. Then we will fall into the trap of pluralism. On the other hand, synthesis, when not supplemented by analysis, leads to monism. If we put many things into one and we don't apply the technique of analysis, then we will fall into the trap of monism. So when we study Mahayana Buddhism, we should be very careful. In Mahayana Buddhism, we can encounter the method of analysis, the method of synthesis. For example, in the consciousness-only theory, or we call it the Vijñāpti Matrata theory, we analyze our consciousness into 8 consciousness. This is a kind of synthesis. No, this is a kind of analysis. We analyze our consciousness into 8 kinds of consciousness. If we don't supplement with synthesis, then we'll fall to the trap of pluralism. And in the theory of Buddha nature, Buddha Dhatu, or the Buddha culture, the theory of Buddha nature, we conclude everything into Buddha nature. And the Buddha nature seems to be the source of many things, of all phenomena. We will fall into the trap of moralism. If we don't really understand the Buddha teachings, then when we practice or learn Mahayana Buddhism, we will go to the extreme of pluralism or moralism. That means that we will become heretic. We are not Buddhists. We are not Buddha's followers, but we become the followers of theism or pantheism or atheism. We are not the true Buddhism. It is very important when we study Buddhism and practice Buddhism. We have to apply these 2 methods of analysis and synthesis together in the same time. What one finds in Buddhism is a combined use of both methods. It means that we have to apply these 2 techniques together at the same time. Otherwise, Mahayana Buddhism are rejected by some Theravadan Buddhists as Mahayana Buddhism is a kind of Brahma-sized Buddhism, because there are many ideas, many concepts taken from Brahmanism. As what I just mentioned, Buddha nature. But Buddha nature is also understood by Mahayana Buddhists as the Buddha nature is the source of all phenomena. Then this is a kind of monism. It is wrong. It is the wrong view. We have to truly understand the meaning of the Buddha nature. And of course, we have to truly understand the meaning of Prajna Paramita, or the Araya consciousness, or any theories in Mahayana Buddhism. But Buddhism is a kind of middle path from the very beginning, from the theory of dependent arising up to the theory of Buddha nature. If we don't truly understand the meaning of dependent arising, then we cannot understand the theories developed from the dependent arising. This results in a philosophical vision which beautifully transcends the dialectical opposition between monism and pluralism. It means that Buddha's teaching is a kind of middle path. Is a kind of middle path. Therefore, Buddhism transcends the dialectical opposition. Dialectical means something related to debate or criticism. Dialectical opposition between monism and pluralism. As we understand that Buddhism is not monism, it is also not pluralism, but it is dependent arising. Then we come to the fourth pair of extremes. Another pair of theoretical views which dependent arising transcends, transcend means rejects, is self-causation, Sayamkata, and external causation, Paramkata. Kata means making, or doing, or action. Sayam means self. And param means other or external, as we have the term of paramita. Self-causation and external causation is the fourth pair of extreme. Self-causation means what we are now is done by ourselves in the past. What we did, then what we will experience. And the external causation means what we experience now is the result of other factors, not our own karma. Sayamkata and Paramkata. The first view conjectures a complete identity between the agent or the doer and the one who experiences. A does something, and A himself experiences its results. This sentence is very important because we Buddhists always say that the law or the principle of cause and effect is the truth. Of course, it is truth. But we always say what we experience now is the result of what we did in the past life. This is the extreme of self-causation. So this is not the right view. This is wrong view. Complete identity. Complete identity means total sameness. What we did in the past, then we will experience now. A does something, and A himself experiences its results. This is a kind of wrong view. This is based on the recognition of an unchanging self-entity that persists throughout time. It is the wrong view of ego, the wrong view of self or the soul. The soul exists forever. We did in the past life, and then we experience in this life. We do in this life, then we will experience in our next life. This is wrong view. This is an extreme of Sayam Kata. According to the second view, Paramkata, there is complete otherness between the agent doer and the one who experiences. A does something, but B experiences its result. The second view is also very popular in Chinese mentality. Chinese people like to talk about feng shui, like to talk about 地理, like to talk about 生辰八字, and so on. They are totally wrong. This is the wrong view. This is the second view. A do something, 地理风水, 生辰八字, or even the strokes of our surname and first name, the strokes will determine our fate. So many people like to change their name. This is a wrong view. This is heretic. This is not the Buddhist view. A do something, 地理风水, 生辰八字, those something they determine our fate now in this level or even in future level. But we experience its results. These two extremes are very popular in Buddhism. Even the Buddhists who have practiced Buddhism for many years, but they still fall into this pitfall, this trap of extremes. Please be reminded, Buddhism is a kind of middle doctrine or middle path. Then we come to the fifth pair of extremes. When the Buddha was asked which of these alternatives is valid, the Buddha did not approve either, because he teaches the doctrine by adopting the middle position. The middle position of the middle path or middle way or Madhyamagga is also available in Theravada Buddhism. But we Buddhists always go to extreme because we have blind faith. We don't truly understand the Buddha Dharma. We only fall into the trap of superstition. The Buddhist position is neither one of complete oneness, absolute identity, nor one of complete otherness, absolute diversity. This is the fifth extreme of identity and diversity. Absolute identity that everything is the same. It is often mentioned in Mahayana Buddhism. In the Chinese Buddhism and the Tibetan Buddhism, we like to use the term of the absolute identity. This is because we misunderstand the Chinese Buddhism and the Tibetan Buddhism. And the opposite is complete otherness, that is absolute diversity. The absolute diversity, it is absolutely that everything are different. Nothing is interconnected. This is a pair of two extremes. If, as the first theory says, the same self-entity does, the same self-entity experiences, this will result in a situation while the process of doing and experiencing will not come to an end. Therefore, we will be reborn again and again. There's no hope for us to liberate from samsara. The self-entity as both agent, doer, and experiences will get trapped in eternity. Asatam itam parati. On the other hand, the second theory says if someone does and someone else experiences, this will result in a situation where consequence of moral actions will come to complete annihilationism. Uchitam itam parati. As the first one is sasatam itam parati. It means eternalism. And the second one is uchitam itam parati. It is nihilism. And this is the absolute diversity. Absolute diversity we can find quite often in Chinese Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. We always say that our guru practice Dharma, then the guru can help someone else, can treat the sickness of other people. But according to the early Buddhism, this is wrong view. This is not the theory of Tibetan arising, because the karma is done by ourselves, and we can stop samsara, we can stop the wheel of rebirth by our effort now. It is only through our effort to practice if we want to liberate from the cycle of rebirth. The latter view forced to establish a causal correlation between the act and its consequence. The latter view means the second view, uchitam itam parati, or nihilism, fails to means cannot establish a causal correlation. Causal correlation means the relation of cause and the effect between the cause and its consequences. From the Buddhist perspective, rigid concepts of absolute identity and absolute diversity cannot do justice to the dynamic stream of becoming. It is very important to remember the term dynamic stream of becoming. Bhava Sutta. Bhava Sutta. Sutta means stream. It means that we can apply the principle of cause and effect to change everything, especially in regard to our body and our mind. It is dynamic. It is changing always. A process of dependent arising and season. A process of dependent arising and season. It is changing forever. It is not a kind of fatalism. It is not a kind of determinism. And of course, it is not a kind of indeterminism. We can do our best to determine our future. Our past has been done, so we cannot change our past experience, but we can be mindful of the present time. We can change our mentality right here or right now. If we change our mind, then we can change our future. So very important. we have to bear in mind that we are a kind of ever-changing becoming, Bhavashatta. As the Visuddhimagga clarifies, Visuddhimagga was written by Buddhaghosa in the 5th century in Sri Lanka. Visuddhi, Magga. Magga means path. Must mean path. Visuddhi means purification. Visuddhimagga can be translated as the path of purification. And in this book, there are a total of 22 chapters. And these 22 chapters can be divided into prologue and epilogue. And the main parts consist of 3 methods of purification. The first one is the discussion about the Shida. The second one is the discussion on Samatha. The third part is the discussion on Panya. Therefore, the Shida, Samatha, and the Panya are the techniques of purification. So, Visuddhimagga is the most important, the most popular treatise in Theravada Buddhism. And almost all the followers of Theravada Buddhism should study this book, Visuddhimagga. As the Visuddhimagga clarifies, and with a stream of continuity, there is neither identity nor otherness. For if there were absolute identity in a stream of continuity, there would be no forming of curd from milk. And yet, if there were absolute otherness, the curd would not be derived from the milk. And so too with all causally arising things. Buddhaghosa was the most important figure in Theravada Buddhism. He clarifies what is the true meaning of dependent arising and season with a stream of continuity. Continuity means continue. A stream of continuity, just like a river. The river flows forever until it enters into the ocean. But there is neither identity nor otherness. It means that it is the transcendence of identity and otherness. For if there were absolute identity in the stream of continuity, it means that there is a soul or an ego or an atta or atma. There will be no forming of curd from milk. Milk can change into curd. Curd comes from milk, but curd is not milk. However, curd cannot arise without milk. And yet, if there were absolute otherness, the curd would not be derived from the milk. It means the curd can be derived from anything else. from all things. But however, from the milk to become curd, there should be many conditions. For example, there should be suitable temperature, and there should be the so-called agents in it or the biotic in the milk. Otherwise, the milk cannot become curd. The curd is not different from milk, and also it's not different. It's not the same as milk. They are the relationship of dependent arising. And so too with all causally arising things, all causally arising things means the mundane world. The mundane world, it means that everything in the conditions world, we cannot go to any extremes. Okay. Tonight, our talk stops here. Is there any question from you? No, any comments from you?
Professor.
Oh, Professor Huang. Okay.
Well, I can learn from today's lesson. I can get two things about dependent co-arising or arising. The first is that since Buddhism does not accept the position of rigid determinism, so that means we can make an effort to change our destiny or our situation. That's the first thing I learned.
Yeah, you are right.
Yeah, the second is that since Buddhism also rejects or transcends the rigid indeterminism, so that means there are moral action and the result. There is a connection between these two things. So that means moral action is very important for us to do the right things. And these are two things I learned from today's lesson.
Yes, you are right. You are right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is the implication of the dependent arising. Nothing is determined, nothing is fatal, but everything can be changed. And the way to change ourselves, our life, is through our effort, our practice, the three learnings of the so-called Siddha, Samatha, Anapanna. Thank you, Adar. Any question from others? No question? If no question, we have to end tonight's talk. Thanks a lot for the deal.
Thank you very much, Professor Cheng, for the detailed exposition and discussion today of the theory of codependent co-arising in the third chapter of the written book. Before we end this Dhamma session, dear fellow class members, once again, please turn on our video cameras. Let us put our palms together. Let us listen and repeat after Professor Cheng as we invite the professor to lead the class in the dedication of merits. Professor Cheng, please.
May all sentient beings practice the principle of dependent arising.
May all sentient beings practice the dependent arising.
May all sentient beings be free from extremes.
May
May all sentient
sentient
beings
beings be free from extremes.
extremes.
May all sentient beings be well and happy.
May
May
all
all
sentient
sentient
beings
beings be well and
be well and
happy.
happy.
Thank you a lot. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you, Professor.
Namo Amitofo. Dear fellow class members, let us continue to keep our palms together. In gratitude and with great appreciation, please give one bow to the professor and Dharma teacher. Thank you, Professor Ching, once again.
Okay.
See you again at the
Amitofo.
next session.
Thanks a lot.
Amitofo.
Amitofo.